Welcome back. The issues around the FCT and politics has been a very crucial issues to handle. First, it is tied around the fact that who should contest in elections within the Federal Capital Territory. But the root cause of some of those conversation borders on who even owns the FCT, what are the issues, and also how does this affect the choices that people have to even make within the FCT, and who goes into political space and who does not? Well, joining me to help us talk about the FCT politics is Honorable ADOGA Godwin. You're welcome to Korero.
Thank you so much. Really great pleasure to be here.
All right, so let's look at the generality of the politics in and around the Federal Capital Territory. When we look at it, on one hand, it tends to be a politics for the indigenous people of the Federal Capital Territory. But then you have been in the Federal Capital Territory for a very long while and you understand the politics. Bring us up to speed. What is the nature of the politics within the FCT?
All right, so I'd like to start by bringing us back, to how the FCT was created in the first place. To get the FCT as a territory, right, some states had to be carved. For instance, a huge chunk of Kogi State, the old Kogi State had to be cut off. And that's why you have places like Abaji, today within the FCT. Some parts of Niger State was cut off. Some parts of Plateau State was cut off, right? So the territory itself belongs to a group of, ethnicities. However, because it is a metropolitan area, because it is a melting pot of basically quite a number of interests and a number of people, it is difficult to say specifically, how ethnicity should actually play a role. The main reason why it begins to seem as if, political agencies relegated to a group of individuals is because of voter apathy. And I would like to go further by saying that in Abuja, FCT, if you like, political agency is domiciled, disproportionately domiciled within only 2 tiers of government. Unlike in other states where we have, the middle tier, which is the state government, FCT does not have that, particular structure. So what we end up having is the legislative arm, which is at the federal level, the red and the green chambers. And then we just skip the middle, and then we'll come straight down to the area councils. In other states, it's called the local government. In FCT, we call it the area council. There are 6 of them. Now, people focus more, people pay more attention to the highest level of political participation. That's the reason why you find out that whenever it's a general election to elect a president or a senator, there's quite a lot of turnout, right? But whenever it comes to the local elections to elect a local government chairman or councillors, people simply do not care. For instance, the current, area council chairmen were elected by less than 5% of the population of their area councils. And that tells you that it begins to seem like an ethnic group is actually in control, or they are actually supposed to be represented, because other people simply do not care. If people actually voted the same way they voted in general elections, this question wouldn't have been a question. Would have had several different types of ethnicities, holding positions at the area council level all the way back, so maybe 2003, But that needs to change at this point, because we're actually seeing an influx, of different demographics and population in Abuja. For instance, in 2025, we have a first generation of Abuja citizens that are now of voting age. That is, people who are old enough to vote that were born in Abuja. That wasn't so in the early 2000s. People were just moving into Abuja. But now there are people who are born here who do not remember where their fathers came from, and that is happening currently.
Interesting conversation. Let's travel a bit to a few area council. Well, we'll begin with AMAC and looking at the politics that is playing out within that area council. When we look at the whole structure of AMAC, a lot of people say that currently people from the Baggy extractions are being relegated to the back door of inconsequential, because the likes of Nyesom Wike is the FCT minister, and as such, he has a particular interest. And of course, Mekalangu is also loyal to Nyesom Wike, and as such, we've seen a lot of politics play out that tends to discriminate against people. When you look at it in general, is this a discriminatory policy or a policy or a government of development?
Well, you see, the conversation about discrimination has been ongoing for a very long time. This isn't the first year, or the first 10 years we've been hearing about discrimination. But what I would say, specifically because we're talking about politics, is that, in politics, negotiation is done, especially when you don't have numbers. The real issue, facing, the original inhabitants are facing, is that they do not have the requisite amount of population to make the demand that is required of them. For instance, if you go to a race, and of course, what you need to actually win the race is a faster speed, right? Regardless of who owns, the track, regardless of who makes the rules, if you run faster, you would win the race. So, if you tie it down to the performance of the current, appointed ministers, and commissioners of the FCT, I would say specifically that this has been something that has happened several times. Whenever there is a new member of the Federal Executive Council appointed by the president who works, and is domiciled in Abuja for about 4 to 8 years, they try to do, a lot of inclusion policies, trying to bring people out of it. But here's the thing. When we talk about the original inhabitants of, an area, we should also include people who have also become original inhabitants at some point. FCT will become the largest city in Africa, like it or not, and the definition of what we call original inhabitants would actually change. There are people who have been here since 1940, perhaps moved in from Kano, and they live here now. They have their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren, buried all their parents and siblings here. They are also original inhabitants. So marginalization is not something that is static, it is dynamic. And every time you have to call for, make a call about marginalization, you should also make a call that is specific to a policy you want to see. What exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about more political offices? One of the things I agree with is that FCT, one of the cries that I agree with is that FCT actually requires a state legislative chamber, a state legislative house, because the issues surrounding the FCT actually isn't simply in Amak or in the urban areas. There are actually villages that have specific issues that can actually be, adjudicated or, looked at the state level. But we don't have that. So a lot of power is domiciled in the Amak or the area council chairman. Now, when we're talking about participation, everybody is actually free to participate. There must never come a time when political power is relegated or it is fixed on a group of people. At that point, you don't have a democracy anymore, especially in a place like Abuja, where people contribute and, of course, live and, decide to actually remain here for the rest of their lives. That now becomes a question of political will, negotiation, and political power. So I would say that the minister has actually done pretty well, in my opinion, in actually carrying us as well, along in terms of the development, in terms of appointments, in terms of even, creating avenues for people to participate in politics. The current chairman of the Abuja Municipal Area Council recently moved from his political party to the APC. I think that was in February. And, that caused a little uproar. But at the same time, you can actually see what is going on. The ruling party is attracting these individuals so that they can actually retain their ticket and, of course, seek a better place to retain their power. And that is what I talk about negotiation. You can't cry when you're not negotiating.
Abuja has been known to be a seat for the People's Democratic Party and that of the Labour Party. But with some of the cross-carpeting that we've seen right now, even from the AMAC chairman, like you've mentioned, can we now say that Abuja is tilting towards becoming an all-progressive capital, or we should begin to look at other political parties that can also pull the strings?
The funny thing is that, Abuja, FCT, or even AMAC and Buhari, if you may, the voting pattern mirrors national sentiment, because quite a lot of people actually come here, and then they come here with all sorts of sentiments. So when you take a sample size of what people think around Abuja, in the metropolitan areas, you would actually begin to see what people are thinking across Nigeria is pretty similar. So we're talking about political parties. I'd like to quickly add, just to buttress or to see how we can make your point a little clearer. Labour Party has actually never been a strong force in FCT. Labour Party became a name simply because of the presidential candidate at the time. So I wouldn't say that was a fluke. I would say that was a vehicle that was purposeful at the period of time. However, for you to say you own a city politically, for you to say you actually dominated an environment, you must be able to elect the lowest level of people into office, and that's councillors. PDP has done that in Abuja for about 20 or so years. ANPP has done that, and now APC has also been able to do that as well across areas like Kwali, Abaji, and so on and so forth. So Labour Party is actually a non-issue in this particular situation because it is top-heavy. It has always been top-heavy. It has always been about who is running for president, and that has actually changed, and that's the reason why you are seeing an increase in the participation of more political parties. The upcoming area council election is going to be hotly contested, partly, in part, due to what you just mentioned, which is that a lot of people have actually begun to see that there are things that are possible, given the outcome of the 2023 election, when an incumbent senator was actually removed by somebody who was not very popular and who is now a senator in the FCT. And of course, the member of the House of Rep currently is somebody from the Southeast who is doing pretty well as well, just like the senator. And these are bringing up all sorts of possibilities, and it's going to proliferate down all to the area council level. So the voting pattern is not going to be what we expect. There's going to be a lot of different people voting for different kinds of individuals. It's not going to be political parties versus political parties. It's going to be candidate versus candidate, depending or regardless of where the candidate is coming from. People wouldn't mind voting for any kind of party as long as the person there is someone they like.
So you're saying the pendulum is not shifting; it's going to be individual based.
Absolutely.
As it were.
Absolutely.
So what then happens if the individuals are supposed to represent or be given the mandate to even contest in these elections and not given that mandate from their political party? What then happens? What plays out?
Well, in fact, this is a question that would have been very relevant before June, because the windows for primary elections has actually closed. Closed on June 30th. INEC has even shut down the portal
yeah,
for uploading of names from political parties. So whoever would get the ticket has already gotten it. Whoever wouldn't get it has to just work with his party or cross carpet and see how to get back at the party that didn't give him a ticket. When you don't get the right candidate, in your preferred political party, or when you run for office and you don't pick the ticket to represent your people with your ideology, it's always a difficult thing. But the most important thing to remember is that parties have ideologies. Parties are supposed to have ideologies. So, of course, if you don't get what you are looking for, you should be able to partner with somebody else who has your similar ideology, or you should be able to go somewhere else that accepts your ideology and, of course, run on that platform if it is possible, if the Electoral Act allows it in your situation. However, people are tired, of basically doing, a blanket party kind of participation. People want to see individuals that they trust, individuals that relate with them or understand their ideas. You might be shocked that in the coming area council elections, there's going to be, a very close margin. It's not going to be something that somebody wins by a landslide. It's going to be a lot of people. FCT has over 3 million residents. The current AMAC chairman was elected by less than 20,000 people. That tells you that the representatives we have at the local government level were elected by a fraction. And there are people in the AMAC legislative chambers, the local government, local area council legislative chambers that are making bylaws on behalf of all these 3 million people. So you are being, governed by people you didn't vote for. And people understand that now. People understand that now, especially in this period where things are really difficult and, all these levies are still coming up. Sometimes you are driving and you're finding out that it's just a lot of new levies every day. So many times, individuals are going to win this election. And of course, remember that Abuja has always been an opposition place where no matter how big or mighty you are, there are people who are waiting for you at the finish line just to show you and deal with you and tell you that you are nobody.
All right, so I asked that particular question in order to ask. We've seen what has played out in June, where a lot of indigents and people that are close to the grassroots, didn't see some of the cross-carpeting coming. So they didn't see all of this playing out, and as such, most sons of the land, indigenous people that wanted to even grab the tickets for their parties, were not recognized, they were not given those tickets. At this point in time, are we going to be seeing a revolution by vote, even from the residents and the indigenous people of Abuja?
Yes, so it's going to be a very funny and interesting one. For instance, in Buhari, a popular candidate has moved to ZLP. So we won't be shocked if we see an uptick in votes for ZLP from a huge fraction of people who actually vote traditionally in Buhari area council. In Amak, quite a number of people, the aggrieved faction of the APC, who were not comfortable with the sudden imposition of Christopher Zaka, the current AMAC chairman, on them, Mekalangu. They were not happy with the sudden imposition. And of course, he didn't just come alone, he came with his boys. Quite a number of people, councillors and all that, shifting the original base, to the back. They were not happy, and a lot of them have moved to the ADC, the African Democratic Congress. So you will not be shocked to see that African Democratic Congress is going to win a lot of places. So it's going to move, based on where the grievance is, based on where the interests are, And of course, we already know that the Labour Party is not participating in this election. So a huge chunk of people are already disenfranchised. And don't forget, this is also going to be a really local election where ethnicity plays a major role in how people think about it. When you're talking about elections that comes down to the ward, we're talking about elections that people are winning by 2,000 votes, to literally become one of the elected officers to represent, a ward in the area council. You need less than 3,000 votes. That tells you that we're talking about a whole neighborhood or 2 or 3 neighborhoods of people. Every single one of these electorates, the people contesting against each other are aware of each other, they know each other. So it's going to come down to emotion, it's going to come down, to tribe, religion, and all these other nuances that we don't pay attention much to at the higher levels of governance. So yes, there are going to be trends. APGA is going to get a lot of votes from a section of the electorate. ADC is going to get a lot of votes, win a lot of places. PDP might not survive, considering what is happening, the influx of members of PDP to the APC.
Even though a lot of PDP members will disagree with you right now, that you are saying from your own perspective right now.
We are in the grassroots. We are on ground. We are looking at what is happening. We are talking about a situation whereby PDP party leaders are moving to the APC, because they don't have faith in their own party. And this is a grassroots election. Remember, this is not a federal election. When we talk about federal election, we can say that PDP can win states. But this is a grassroots election. It's always about emotion. It's always about the movement of things at the moment. It's always about where people are actually thinking about what benefits is going to come directly. If you think about it again carefully, you'll find out that the Minister of FCT, which has done a lot for the current AMAC chairman, and of course for Philip Aduda, the former senator, who has done a lot for them. You find out that he is still in the PDP, right? But what he does and his body language and all of his current political machinery is working for something else, right? He's working for a different political party. And that tells you that a lot of things like that is going to happen. People are going to be here and do that. People are going to do this here and, of course, do that over there.
Well, Honorable Godwin ADOGA, I want to say thank you so much for finding out time to be with us here to even help us make sense with the issues around the FCT elections, the forthcoming elections. I want to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, viewers, this is how far we can go on Correro today. Don't forget that you can join the conversation on our various social media handle currently showing on your screen. And you can also download the Rapid TV app on your various iOS and Android devices to keep track of our broadcast. My name is Godwin Sunday. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Do enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye for now.